my honor to present to you our fearless leader, Nadine.
Hello, everybody. This is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. It's funny that everyone is sort of like treats the dance floor like there's a force field around it. That's not how the night's going to end. We're all going to be out there. Invoking the spirit of Edie Windsor. If you weren't here last year and you didn't get to see Edie tear up that dance floor, you missed something amazing. You know what? I'm going to limit my comments to the two questions that I got asked every foot and a half as I walked around. And the first question is, what is the Supreme Court going to do and when? So the when, I will tell you, let me preface by saying I have no idea, but I will also tell you that very, very smart people who often get it right when it comes to the Supreme Court tell us two things. It will probably be at the end of the month, and we're probably going to win. And then the biggest question is, how much will we win? Will we win huge, or will we win just enough, right? And there is an opportunity to win huge. And so most of how people talk about it has been in that frame. And so there's a great deal of reason to be optimistic. In fact, in Florida, you know, we often talk about Florida as a microcosm of the country. And it's true. When you think back to 2008, when 6 out of 10 voters went to the ballot and embedded in our Constitution a ban that said unless you were a heterosexual couple, you were not permitted to marry, that if you were married in other states, and presumably the way it was written, other planets, you would not be recognized when you returned to Florida. To the day we stand in now, where court after court after court in our state and across the nation, with judges appointed by Republicans and Democrats alike, in an overwhelming landslide, have said that our right to marry is fundamental. And as of January, thousands and thousands and thousands of couples all across Florida, and I'm certain some of you in this room tonight, have been able to be married in the place that you call home. It is tremendous. It is absolutely tremendous. So we have a great deal to celebrate. We have a great deal to celebrate, and we have a great deal to feel optimistic about, because public opinion polls, when you look at Florida, our numbers in terms of support for marriage, for LGBT non-discrimination, look an awful lot more like California and New England than they look like Alabama and Georgia. Right? 63% of Floridians support marriage equality, and the numbers are growing exponentially. And I know this. I know those thousands and thousands and thousands of couples who've gotten married since January have all had the experience of deciding who they were going to tell. And there were a few of those family members right there on the border, and you went, what the hell, let's invite Aunt Jenny, right? And she surprised you by being much further along than you ever imagined. And so, no matter how long you do this work, we always remind people there is a universe of people that only you can affect. They know you, they love you, they went to school with you, they work with you, and no organization, no brochure, nothing is going to reach them except you. And I know this to be true. And I had an experience recently that reminded me that no matter how many years I do this, I keep learning to unpack the internalized homophobia that I was fed every day of my life growing up. And this was the moment. So we've partnered with Freedom to Marry, and we've been, some of you may have seen the commercial that we've been running on Bright House. Raise your hand, wave if you saw it, right? So it's been exciting. We've done town halls. Many of you have written love letters to the Supreme Court justices. So we've been trying to figure out how to, we wanted to do a second commercial, and we were on a call, and the folks were going, you know, we need somebody from the Panhandle, where I grew up, up in Panama City. We need somebody from the Panhandle. It'd be great if it was like an African somebody like really steeped in the church, you know, somebody who was known in his community, and I'm thinking, I think I know this guy. I'm pretty sure he raised me. And, but here was the thing. If I was absolutely honest, I was about to have to call a question that I didn't know the answer to. Because it's one thing to have evolved from the day when I came out to my parents and it was the last day I lived under their roof, to my father walking me down the aisle for my wedding, to saying, will you sit in front of a camera and tell our story and have that story broadcast to everybody you know. And I can't tell you how trepidatious I was. I tried to be cool, because, you know, that's how I roll. But I called my dad, and I was like, yeah, somebody's going to call you, and they're going to ask you to do this thing. If you want to do it, that'd be cool. And we had our marriage czar. I think it was our marriage czar. And don't you love that we can name people czars? But Hannah Willard, our marriage czar, I think, reached out to him. And he not only said yes, he said yes enthusiastically. And that's when the real panic set in. Because my father has no filter whatsoever. And I thought, oh, God, I was going to tell him. Anyway, that commercial was put together. I'm still fine. And that day, the same day that they filmed the commercial, was our first Kanawha City event. And I danced with my father at an Equality Florida fundraiser. I tell you that story because this is a journey story. And it's not simply about the rights of a particular segment of society. It's about holding our country accountable to the words that we said as kids with our hand over our hearts. It's about the values of equality and justice. And I will tell you that the second question I get asked is, after we get married, are we done? And I want to say at the top of my lungs, no, not by a long shot. Marriage is huge. We have so much to celebrate in Florida. We could have been Alabama, where it's contested. We could be a state where they're passing law after law to exempt magistrates, to do all kinds of things. Florida became seamlessly a marriage equality state. And it's because of the stories we told. It's because we pushed and we said we demand this, and it matters. So we've got tons to celebrate. But we cannot forget, even for one moment, that we live in a state where in all but 11 of our 67 counties, it is perfectly legal under local and state law to say we don't serve your kind and we don't hire your kind. We have to remember that marriage is cold comfort for a 15-year-old who's getting bullied in school. It is no use whatsoever to our transgender brothers and sisters who face the highest amount of violence, the highest amount of unemployment. There is no way we can think, even for a moment, that the fight is over. If anything, this is what we should be thinking. Look at this amazing work. Look at this amazing power we have built as a community. Look at these incredible allies standing shoulder to shoulder with us right now. We would be absolutely reckless not to seize this moment to secure the protections that we know a truly just society would provide. Full equality under the law. Not just schools, not only schools that say, hey, you know what, I think maybe you shouldn't get beat up, you shouldn't be psychologically tormented, but are actually places that LGBT youth feel supported and affirmed. Our bar should not be, please don't fire us, please don't kill us, please don't beat us up, please don't take my child away from me. Our bar should be much higher than that. Our bar should be that the child born tonight who is LGBT or T will grow up in a world where that is utterly irrelevant to the quality of their life and how they're treated. That must be our standard. And our honorees tonight remind us of two things that are very important. There was a moment in time when working for LGBT equality and fighting AIDS and HIV were synonymous. And we have drifted too far from that mission And we need to rededicate ourselves because there's an awful lot of young people who do not have any recollection of what we endured in the 80s. And the rate of HIV infection and transmission in Florida is staggering. We must rededicate ourselves to that. And I'm thrilled that we've also honored Tech Data, because when I say the work ahead is going to be harder, it's because we're facing a backlash because of our victories. This past legislative session, we saw a bill introduced that made it illegal for transgender people to use public restrooms. And that was a bill that passed 2 committees before we were able to stop it. We also saw a bill that would have reintroduced discrimination into the adoption process by allowing state-funded adoption agencies to say, either on religious grounds or personal bias, we don't think you are suitable to be a parent because you're LGBT. That bill sailed through the House, and it was only because of incredible work on the Senate side that we were able to stop that bill. These are the worst bills, absolutely. These are the worst bills that we have seen in Tallahassee in at least a decade. The backlash is real. We've got to be prepared for that. And so, in so many ways, in this moment right now, we cannot forget the people who live in those 56 other counties where 0 protections exist, because the backlash hits harder in the places where we are most vulnerable. We have an obligation to stay on the ground all across the state, invested deeply in this fight. So I want to thank every one of you who have been part of this. I want to thank the companies like Tech Data that have stepped up in Tallahassee to say in one voice, we demand our state legislature and our governor pass a non-discrimination bill that includes sexual orientation and gender identity. And thank you, John Tonneson, for leading the way. So, I just want to leave you with this. I see a lot of faces that I haven't seen in a long time. It's been years. But you were there in the early days, and we're so thrilled to have you back. I see a lot of people who are brand new to this work. This may be your first event. You've arrived just in time. We've needed some fresh horses. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. I see Republicans and Democrats in this room who share the values and commitment that Equality Florida has to full equality. Thank you for bringing bipartisanship to this fight. And thank you all. Thank you all. My wife is here, Andrea's here. Our son is 4 years old. He's having his first sleepover. And every day he reminds me, every single day, he reminds me of how important this work is and the world that I want him to grow up in. And I am more committed to this at this moment than I've ever been in this fight. And I want you to have that commitment too. I want you to be the adult you wish had been in your life when you were growing up in a hostile place that told you you shouldn't exist. And if you existed, you better hide. And if you didn't hide, whatever came your way, whatever hurt you was your own fault. I want you to dedicate yourself tonight to changing that world for not just my child, but all of us. We deserve that world. We've worked hard for that world, and it's finally within reach. Thank you all so very, very much.